Dr. Ji-won stood in the kitchen of the research station, looking out at the stars through the small window. She had been on this station for 3 months now, studying the Vethrak species. These aliens were not like anything she had ever seen before. They were huge, with teeth that looked like daggers and claws as sharp as knives. Their skin was dark green and rough, and their eyes glowed bright yellow in the darkness. Most of the other humans on the station felt scared when they saw the Vethrak. They stayed away from them. They did not want to talk to them or work with them, but Ji-won was different. She did not feel fear. Instead, she felt interested. She wanted to understand them. She wanted to learn their ways. Today, the station commander had given her a new job. He asked her to prepare food for both humans and the Vethrak together. This was an important task. It was a way to show that the two species could work as a team. The commander hoped that sharing food would help humans and Vethrak become friends. Ji-won was happy to do this work. She believed that learning about another species was more important than staying afraid of them. The kitchen was small, but clean. Ji-won had already made breakfast for the human workers. She had cooked eggs and made coffee. Now she needed to prepare something for the Vethrak. She knew they only ate meat. Raw meat was their favorite food. She had prepared some fresh meat and placed it in a special container. The smell of the meat filled the kitchen. It was a strong smell. Not bad, but very different from human food. As Ji-won was cleaning the counter, she heard a sound. It was a soft noise, like something walking on metal. She turned around and saw 3 young Vethrak cubs standing in the doorway. They were much smaller than the adult Vethrak, but still much bigger than any human. Their eyes were bright and curious. They looked at everything in the kitchen with great interest. Ji-won could see that they had never been in this room before. They had never seen human tools and human food before. Ji-won smiled at the cubs. She did not feel scared. She knew that young animals were usually curious about new things. She knew they wanted to learn. "Hello," she said to them in a soft voice. "Come and see what I am doing." The 3 cubs moved slowly into the kitchen. The biggest one came first. His name was Kravel. The other 2 followed him. Their names were Thas and Mirka. All 3 cubs had bright yellow eyes and small teeth that had not yet grown to their full size. They looked at Ji-won with their heads turned to one side, like they were trying to understand who she was. Ji-won opened the bread box and took out a piece of bread. The cubs watched every move she made. Their ears moved back and forth. Their tails moved slowly. She could see that they were very interested in what she was doing. She did not know it yet, but this simple action would change everything. Ji-won placed the bread in the toaster. It was an old toaster, the kind with springs that pushed the bread up when it was done. She pressed the button and the toaster started to heat. A red glow came from inside the toaster. The bread inside started to turn brown. The smell of toasted bread filled the kitchen. The 3 cubs moved closer. Their noses came up in the air. They were smelling the toast. Kravel made a sound in his throat like he was trying to talk. Thas and Mirka copied the sound. All 3 of them were watching the toaster very carefully. Ji-won could see that they did not understand what was happening. They only knew that something was being changed by heat. Something was being made different. After a few minutes, the toaster made a small sound, and the toast popped up. The bread was now golden brown and warm. Ji-won took the toast out and placed it on a plate. She put some butter on top. The butter melted in the heat of the toast. She added some jam on top. It looked beautiful and smelled very good. "This is toast," she said to the cubs, speaking slowly and clearly. "We take bread and put it in the heat box. The heat makes the bread change. It becomes hard on the outside and soft inside. Then we eat it." Ji-won broke a small piece of the toast and held it out to Kravel. The big cub sniffed it carefully. He looked at the bread. He looked at the toaster. He looked back at the bread. His yellow eyes were very bright. He seemed to be thinking hard about something. Very slowly, he took the piece of toast from Ji-won's hand and put it in his mouth. He bit it carefully. His eyes got even brighter. "Good?" Jiwan asked. Cravel made a loud chirping sound. Thas and Mirka moved even closer. They also wanted to taste the toast. Jiwan gave small pieces to both of them. All three cubs seemed to like it. They made happy sounds. They moved their tails very fast. Their ears pointed forward. Jiwan showed them the toaster again. She explained how it worked. "Heat changes food," she said. "Heat makes things better." She showed them the bread, then the toast. Before heat, hard and white. After heat, soft and brown. The cubs watched very carefully. Cravel looked at the bread. He looked at the toaster. He looked at the toast. Then he looked at Thas and Mirka. The three of them made sounds to each other. Jiwan could not understand what they were saying, but she could see that they understood something. They seemed to understand that heat could change food. After some time, the cubs became tired. They had been in the kitchen for a long time. Their eyes started to close a little. Jiwan gave each of them one more piece of toast. They ate it happily. Then they walked slowly back out of the kitchen. Their tails moved slowly from side to side as they left. "Come back anytime," Jiwan called out to them. "You can watch me cook whenever you want." The cubs made soft chirping sounds as they walked away. Jiwan did not know what was about to happen. She did not know that the cubs would remember everything they had seen. She did not know that they would try to copy what she had done. She did not know that in just a few hours, the whole station would be filled with noise and foam and confusion. Jiwan finished her work in the kitchen and left to go back to her office. She felt happy about what had happened. She thought that showing the cubs how humans made food was a good thing. She thought that this small moment in the kitchen was the beginning of something good between humans and the Vethrak. She did not know that her simple lesson would soon cause 3 different alarms to go off at the same time. The toast sat on the counter, getting cold. The toaster was clean and quiet. Everything looked normal. But in the minds of 3 young Vethrak cubs, something had changed. They now knew that heat could change food, and they were very excited to try it themselves. The 3 cubs walked back to their quarters with something very important on their minds. They had seen something amazing in the human kitchen. They had seen something that had changed food. They had tasted the toast, and it was good. It was different from raw meat. It was warm and soft and had a nice taste. All 3 cubs felt the same thing at the same time. They wanted to try this themselves. They wanted to take raw meat and make it like the toast. Cravel was the first to have the idea. He was the biggest of the 3 cubs and the one who was always first to try new things. He turned to look at Thas and Mirka. "We can do what the human did," he said. "We can take our food and put it in the heat box. Our food will become like the toast. It will become better." Thas and Mirka looked at each other. They both knew that Cravel had a good idea. They had both seen the toast. They had both felt how warm it was. They had both tasted how good it was. If they could do the same thing to their meat, it would be even better. Raw meat was good, but maybe cooked meat would be better. Maybe cooked meat would taste like the toast. Maybe it would taste amazing. "Let us go to the food storage," Mirka said. He was the smallest of the 3, but he was also the most curious. He was always asking questions. He was always trying to understand how things worked. "We need to find meat, good meat, fresh meat." The 3 cubs went to the food storage room. This room was cold and full of meat. There was so much meat stored on shelves and in containers. The smell was strong and made the cubs' mouths water. They had eaten this meat many times before. It was their normal food. But now they wanted to change it. They wanted to make it like the toast. Cravel used his mouth to pull down a piece of fresh meat from a shelf. It was not too small and not too big. It was perfect. The meat was cold and red and looked very good. He held it in his mouth as he walked. Thas and Mirka followed him. They were excited. They were going to try something new. They were going to do something that no young Vethrak had ever done before. The common dining area was quiet when they arrived. There was one toaster sitting on the counter. It looked exactly like the toaster that Ji-Wan had used in the kitchen. The three cubs stopped and looked at the toaster. Cravel still held the meat in his mouth. Thas and Mirka stood on each side of him. "This is the heat box," Cravel said, putting the meat down on the counter. "The human put the bread inside. The heat changed the bread. It made it brown and warm. Now we will put meat inside. The heat will change the meat. It will make it brown and warm, like the toast." Thas reached out one of his claws and touched the toaster. It was metal and cool. He looked at Cravel. "How do we open it?" he asked. Cravel remembered watching Ji-Wan. She had put the bread down into the toaster. There was a slot at the top. The bread went down into the hot place inside. He looked at the toaster carefully. He saw the same slot. "We put the meat down like this," he said. Cravel picked up the meat with his mouth again. He held it over the slot at the top of the toaster. Then he let it drop down inside. The meat fell into the toaster. It landed on the hot metal coils inside. Immediately, there was a sizzling sound. The meat started to cook very fast, but something was wrong. This meat was not bread. This meat was thick and wet. It started to leak liquid. The liquid dripped onto the hot coils. The hot coils got very hot. Smoke started to come out of the toaster. Not a little bit of smoke, a lot of smoke. Black smoke and white smoke mixed together. The smoke filled the common dining area. It had a burnt smell. It had a bad smell. Mirka made a scared sound. "Something is wrong," he said. "Something is very wrong." Thas stepped back. "The heat box is breaking," he said. "The heat box does not like the meat." Inside the toaster, the situation was getting worse. The meat was not just cooking, it was burning. It was burning very hot. Sparks came from the toaster. The metal was getting too hot. The plastic handle of the toaster started to melt a little. The smell of burnt meat and burning plastic filled the air. The first alarm happened then. The smoke alarm on the ceiling heard the smoke. It heard it, and it did not like it. The alarm started to make a very loud sound. Beep, 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 beep. It was a high sound that hurt the ears. It was a warning sound. It meant something was very wrong. The three cubs heard the alarm and became very scared. They did not know this sound. They did not know what it meant. They only knew that it was loud and that it was bad. Cravel ran to the corner. Thas and Mirka ran after him. They huddled together in the corner of the room. Their ears were flat against their heads. Their tails were between their legs. They were scared. The smoke alarm was still making its noise. Beep, 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 beep. And then another sound started. This sound was different. This sound was the fire suppression system. Water started to fall from the ceiling like rain. It was cold water, and it came down very fast. All of the water poured into the common dining area. It poured on the toaster. It poured on the walls. It poured on the floor. It poured on the three cubs. The cold water hit Cravel, and he yelped. The water hit Thas, and he made a loud sound. The water hit Mirka, and he ran in circles. All three cubs were now very wet. Water was dripping from their heads. Water was on their fur. They were cold and scared and confused. But there was more. The second alarm was now active. The system was spraying foam now, not just water. White foam came from the ceiling. It was thick and sticky. It covered everything. It covered the floor. It covered the walls. It covered the toaster. It covered the three young cubs. Cravel was now covered in white foam. He looked like he was made of clouds. Thas and Mirka were also covered. They looked at each other and made scared sounds. They did not understand what was happening. They did not know that they had caused this. They only knew that everything was wrong. Then came the third alarm. The general emergency alert sounded through all the speakers on the station. A strong voice came through the speaker. "Warning! Warning! Fire detected! Emergency protocol activated! All personnel move to safe areas!" The voice repeated this message over and over. The alarms kept making sounds. The water and foam kept falling. The three cubs huddled together in their corner. They were wet and cold and covered in white foam and very scared. The door to the common dining area burst open. People in uniforms came in. Humans with serious faces and tools in their hands. They saw the three cubs covered in foam. They saw the smoking toaster. They saw the fire. They moved very fast to stop the fire. They put special things around the toaster. They made the fire stop, but the alarms were still making noise. The water was still falling. The foam was still coming down. People were running in many directions. Some people had tools. Some people had weapons. They did not know what had happened. They did not know why there were 3 young Vethrak cubs in the common area covered in white foam. The commander's voice came through the speaker system. He sounded angry and confused. "What in the name of Protocol 7 is happening down there?" Nobody had a good answer. The 3 cubs sat in their corner, cold and scared and covered in foam. The great toasting disaster had begun. The station was in complete confusion. The alarms had finally stopped making noise about 30 minutes after the fire started. The water had stopped falling. The foam had stopped spraying. But the damage was clear. The common dining area was wet and dirty. The toaster was burned and broken. There was a burnt smell in the air that made everyone's nose hurt. The 3 young cubs had been brought to a holding area while the humans worked to understand what had happened. Cravel, Thas, and Mirka sat together under a heat lamp that was meant to dry them. They were no longer covered in foam, but they were still very wet and cold and scared. Nobody had told them what was going to happen next. Nobody had explained why the alarms had sounded. They only knew that they had done something very wrong. In the command center of the station, the commander sat at his desk and watched video recordings. The security cameras had recorded everything that had happened in the common dining area. The commander watched as the 3 cubs looked at the toaster. He watched as Cravel dropped the raw meat into the toaster. He watched as the smoke started. He watched as the alarms went off. He watched as the water and foam covered everything. When the video finished, the commander was quiet for a long time. His face was red. His hands were in tight fists. Around him, other workers looked at each other nervously. Nobody wanted to be the one to speak first. Finally, the commander spoke. "Those aliens just caused a major emergency," he said. His voice was very angry. 3 alarms went off. The fire suppression system was activated. We could have had real damage. We could have lost important things on this station, and we have no idea why they did it. A young officer named Park stood up. He was nervous, but he had information. "Sir, I think I understand what happened," he said. "I watched the video many times. The cubs watched Dr. Jiwan make toast in the kitchen this morning. They saw her put bread in the toaster. They saw it come out brown and warm. I think they thought that all food needed to be put in the heat box. I think they were trying to cook their meat the same way." The commander looked at Park. "Are you telling me that this entire disaster happened because of a cooking lesson?" His voice was loud and angry. Park nodded slowly. "Yes, sir. I believe that is what happened." The commander stood up from his desk. "Where is Dr. Jiwan?" he asked. "I want to see her in my office right now." A few minutes later, Jiwan walked into the command center. She had heard about the alarm. She had heard about the fire. She had heard that the 3 cubs were involved. But she did not know all the details. Her heart was beating very fast. She felt worried. The commander pointed at a chair. "Sit down, Dr. Jiwan." She sat down. The commander turned on the video of the common dining area. He played the video for her. Jiwan watched as the cubs tried to toast the raw meat. She watched as it caught fire. She watched as the alarms went off. When the video finished, she understood everything. "I showed them how the toaster works," Jiwan said quietly. Her voice was sad. "This morning, they came to the kitchen. They watched me make toast. I showed them bread. I showed them the toaster. I showed them the finished toast. I explained that heat changes food." The commander looked at her. He was still angry, but he was also starting to understand. "And they thought that all food needed heat?" he asked. "Yes," Jiwon said. "From their point of view, that makes perfect sense. I showed them heat changing one type of food. They did not understand that different foods need different treatment. They did not understand that toasters are only for bread. To them, I showed them a simple lesson. Heat changes food into something better. They followed that lesson logically." The commander was quiet. He wanted to stay angry. He wanted to blame someone. But he could see that Ji-won was right. She had not been careless. She had simply not thought about how the cubs would understand her demonstration. "Those 3 cubs broke station rules," the commander said. "They caused an emergency situation. The Vethrak ambassador is going to be very upset about this." As if on cue, a door opened. The Vethrak ambassador Korshel walked into the room. She was huge, even bigger than the adult Vethrak that the humans usually saw. Her yellow eyes were bright with anger. She did not sit down. She stood very tall and looked down at the humans in the room. "I have learned about the incident," Korshel said. Her voice was loud and deep. It vibrated in everyone's chest. 3 young cubs of my species have caused dangerous problems. They have broken human rules. They have put the station at risk. This is not acceptable. This is a serious problem." The commander stood up. "Ambassador, we are investigating the incident. We will determine what happened and take appropriate action." "I know what happened," Korshel said. "My cubs told me. They tried to copy what they saw in the kitchen. They tried to improve their food. This shows bad training. This shows that they did not understand the rules of this station." The ambassador turned to look at Ji-won. "You were the one who taught them about heat and food," she said. It was not a question. "You are responsible for this." Ji-won stood up. She was nervous, but she spoke clearly. "I am responsible," she said. "You are right. I should have explained more carefully. I should have told them that different foods are prepared in different ways. I should have been more clear about what the toaster was for. But the cubs are not stupid. They are logical. They saw what I showed them and they tried to understand it. The problem is not with them. The problem is that I did not explain well enough." Korshel was quiet. She looked at Ji-won for a long time. Her yellow eyes studied the human woman. "You take responsibility," she finally said. "That is good. But 3 alarms went off. The station was put in danger. This cannot happen again." "It will not happen again," Ji-won said. "Let me work with the cubs. Let me teach them properly about human technology and human rules. Let me help them understand. I started this by showing them the toaster. Let me finish it by making sure they understand." The commander looked at Ji-won. He did not expect her to volunteer for more work with the cubs, but he could see that it might be the right choice. He looked at the ambassador. "What do you think, ambassador?" he asked. Korshel was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, "I will allow it, but Dr. Ji-won will be responsible for the cubs' behavior. If they cause problems again, there will be serious consequences." "I understand," Ji-won said. The investigation had begun, but the real work was about to start. Ji-won knew that the cubs had not meant to cause damage. They had simply tried to learn. They had simply tried to copy something they thought was good. Now she had to help them understand the difference between learning and making mistakes. The holding area was quiet and clean. Kravel, Thas, and Mirka sat on a large bed meant for Vethrak. They were dry now, but they were still very scared. They did not know if they would be punished. They did not know if they would be sent away from the station. They did not know what would happen to them next. The door opened and Ji-won walked in. The commander was with her, and so was a Vethrak guard. The cubs saw Ji-won and they became even more scared. They thought she was angry at them. They thought she had come to tell them that they were in very big trouble. Kravel, Thas, Mirka, Jiwon said in a soft voice. "I want to talk with you. I want to understand what happened. I do not want to punish you. I want to help you." The commander said to the guard, "Keep watch. I want to make sure everything stays safe." Then the commander and the Vethrak guard left the room. It was just Jiwon and the three cubs now. The cubs still looked scared, but they began to relax a little bit. "Come and sit with me," Jiwon said. She pointed to a place on the floor in front of the cubs. She sat down and waited. Slowly, the three cubs came down from the bed. They walked over to Jiwon and sat down in front of her. Cravel was still scared. Thas was also scared, but Mirka, the smallest one, looked at Jiwon with curious eyes. He wanted to know what she would say. "Today, something bad happened," Jiwon said. "But I do not think you were trying to be bad. I think you were trying to be smart. I think you were trying to learn. Am I right?" Cravel looked down at his feet. He did not answer. "Cravel," Jiwon said gently, "look at me. I am not angry. I want to understand." Cravel looked up at Jiwon. His yellow eyes were wet. He was almost crying. "We wanted to make our food good," he said quietly. "You showed us that heat changes food. You showed us that food can be better after heat. So we tried. We tried to make our meat like your toast. But we did something wrong." "You did not do something wrong," Jiwon said. "You did something that did not work. But that is different. Wrong means you meant to cause damage. You did not mean to cause damage. You meant to help your food. That is not wrong. That is just not understanding." Thas looked up. "But the heat box broke," he said, "and the water came from the ceiling, and the alarm made noise. We caused all of that." "Yes," Jiwon said, "but you caused it because you did not know. The heat box is made for bread. Bread is soft. When you heat bread, it becomes golden brown and good to eat. But meat is not like bread. Meat is thick and it has water inside it. When you put meat in the heat box, the meat gets too hot. The water comes out. The water touches the hot metal and it makes smoke. The smoke makes the alarm go off. Do you understand?" Mirka made a small sound. "Different foods need different heat," he said slowly, like he was thinking about it as he spoke. "Bread needs the heat box, but meat does not need the heat box." "Good," Jiwon said. "You are thinking correctly now. But how does meat get cooked if the heat box does not work?" Mirka thought for a moment. "In the Vethrak way, we eat meat raw," he said. "We do not cook it. Raw meat is good for us." "That is right," Jiwon said. "Humans cook meat because our body is different. Humans cannot eat raw meat the same way you eat it. We need to cook meat with different tools. We use stoves and fires. We cook meat slowly. But you have a choice. Your body is made for raw meat. Raw meat is safe for you. Raw meat is good for you. You do not need to cook it." Cravel understood now. "The toast was different from meat," he said. "Humans make toast because bread needs heat. But our meat does not need heat the way bread needs heat." "Exactly," Jiwon said. "Every food is different. Every species is different. Humans need to cook meat, but you do not. That is okay. Different is okay. Different does not mean wrong." Jiwon stood up and walked to a table where she had brought some things. She had brought bread, meat, a toaster, and a heat source. She showed the cubs each thing. "Look," she said, "this is bread. It is hard and white. It does not taste very good like this. When I put it in the heat box, something happens. Heat makes the bread change. The water inside the bread goes away. The bread becomes brown. The sugar in the bread becomes sweet. Look at this." Jiwon took out a piece of toast from a container. It was brown and warm. She broke it in half. Inside, it was soft and light. "See?" she said. "The heat changed it. The heat made it better for humans to eat. But this heat box is made for bread only. It is too small for meat. It is too hot for wet meat. The meat burns instead of cooking nicely." Thas reached out carefully and touched the toast. "It is warm," he said. "Yes," Jiwan said. "When humans eat warm food, it feels good. But your body is different. Your body does not need warm food. You are a carnivore. You hunt meat. You eat it raw. Your body is perfect for that." Mirka made a small chirping sound. "Why did the human make toast?" he asked. "If our body does not need it, why do humans need it?" "That is a very good question," Jiwan said. "Humans are omnivores. We eat plants and meat both. We cannot eat all raw plant food. Our body cannot digest hard raw plants very well. So we cook plants. We cook bread, vegetables, and other plants. Heat makes them soft and easy to eat. Heat makes them safe to eat. But meat is different for humans too. We also cook meat, but for different reasons. Heat kills bad things that might be in the meat. Heat makes the meat soft and safe." The three cubs listened carefully. They were learning. They were understanding. The fear was leaving their eyes. "So," Cravel said slowly, "every species eats different food in different ways. Humans cook bread and meat, but we Vethrak eat raw meat. Neither way is wrong, just different." "Perfect," Jiwan said. "You have understood. Now, do you know why the alarms went off?" "The heat box broke," Mirka said. "Why did it break?" Jiwan asked. "Because meat is not like bread," Thas said. "The heat was too hot. The meat had water inside. The water made smoke." "Right," Jiwan said. "The heat box is made for a specific purpose. It is made for bread. When you use tools for the wrong thing, they break. Just like if I tried to use your hunting claw to cut bread, it would not work. Tools are made for specific things. Does that make sense?" All three cubs nodded. They understood now. They understood that they had not been trying to be bad. They had just been trying to use a tool that was not made for their food. They had tried to help, but they had used the wrong tool. "I think you are all very smart," Jiwan said. "You saw something interesting. You tried to understand it. You tried to copy what you saw. That is how you learn. The problem was that you did not know all the information. Now you know. You know that heat box is for bread. You know that your meat does not need cooking in that way. You know that different species have different needs. Is that right?" "Yes," all three cubs said together. "Good," Jiwan said. "Then you are not in big trouble, but you did cause damage to the station. So you are going to help me. You are going to help me fix the toaster. You are going to help me clean the common area. And every day, you are going to come and learn about human tools and human food. Is that fair?" "Yes," the cubs said. They sounded relieved. They were going to be okay. "One more thing," Jiwan said. "Why did you not ask me before you used the heat box? You could have asked me. I would have explained." Mirka answered, "We wanted to surprise you. We wanted to make something nice. We did not know we needed to ask first." Jiwan felt her heart get soft. These cubs were not bad. They were young and curious. They had made a mistake, but they had learned from it. "That was kind," she said. "You wanted to do something nice for me. That was a good thought. But always ask before you use tools you do not understand. Promise me that." "We promise," the three cubs said. And so the most important learning began. Not in a classroom, but in a small room with three young aliens and one human woman who believed that understanding was more important than punishment. 2 weeks had passed since the toaster incident. The common dining area had been repaired and cleaned. The burnt toaster had been replaced with a new one. Life on the station was starting to go back to normal, but something had changed. Something important had happened that nobody had expected. Every day, Cravel, Thas, and Mirka came to spend time with Jiwan. They helped her in the kitchen. They learned about human food and human tools. They learned how to use things safely. They learned about human culture and human ways. and they learned that humans were not so different from them after all. Ji-Wan taught them about all kinds of food. She showed them vegetables and fruits. She explained that humans ate many things besides meat. She showed them how different foods needed different cooking methods. She showed them that cooking was not just about heat. Cooking was about understanding what each food needed to be safe and good to eat. The cubs were very good students. They asked many questions. They listened carefully. They remembered what they learned. And they began to see that the world was much more interesting than they had thought before. Cravel became interested in learning about human tools. He wanted to understand how each tool worked and what it was made for. He spent time looking at every tool in the kitchen and asking Ji-Wan questions. What is this for? Why is it made this way? What happens if you use it wrong? Thas became interested in how humans made decisions. He wanted to know why humans did things the way they did. Why do humans cook meat? Why do humans live on this station? Why do humans want to be friends with Vethrak? These questions were deep and thoughtful. Mirka asked questions about everything. He wanted to know about human feelings. He wanted to know why Ji-Wan smiled. He wanted to know why humans felt fear and happiness. He wanted to understand the inside of human minds, not just the outside. Ji-Wan answered every question patiently. She explained things in ways that the cubs could understand. She showed them that learning was not just about getting information. Learning was about understanding why things were the way they were. One day, Ambassador Kor Shell came to the kitchen while Ji-Wan was working with the cubs. She stood in the doorway and watched them for a long time. She watched as Ji-Wan showed them how to cut vegetables. She watched as the cubs carefully used a knife the way Ji-Wan taught them. She watched as they listened and learned and asked questions. Kor Shell came closer. She watched Mirka ask Ji-Wan a question about why humans needed to cook vegetables. She heard Ji-Wan explain that the heat made vegetables soft and made certain things in vegetables safe to eat. She heard Mirka chirp happily when he understood. "Dr. Ji-Wan," the ambassador said. Ji-Wan turned around. She was surprised to see the big ambassador in the kitchen. She was a little nervous. The ambassador had been angry about the toaster incident. "Ambassador Kor Shell," Ji-Wan said, "I did not know you were here." "I came to check on my cubs," Kor Shell said. "I came to make sure they were being treated fairly. But I see something different than what I expected." "What do you see?" Ji-Wan asked. "I see learning," the ambassador said. She moved closer and looked at the cubs. "I see my 3 young Vethrak learning about human ways. I see them asking good questions. I see them wanting to understand. And I see you teaching them with patience and care." Kor Shell looked at Ji-Wan. "These 3 cubs told me something interesting," the ambassador said. "They told me that humans and Vethrak are not so different. They said that both species want to learn, both species want to understand, both species are curious about new things. They said that the only real difference is that we eat different foods and we have different bodies. But inside, we think and feel in similar ways." Ji-Wan did not know what to say. She was happy to hear this. "My cubs also told me something else," Kor Shell continued. "They told me that the toaster incident was not your mistake. They said it was their mistake. They said they did not think carefully, but you helped them learn from the mistake. You did not punish them. You taught them. This is unusual. This is not how many species treat each other." Kor Shell looked at Ji-Wan seriously. "I have come to propose something," she said. "The Vethrak Ambassador Council has learned about what happened here. They have learned about how you taught the cubs. They have heard what the cubs learned. We believe that what is happening here could be important. What if we created a formal program? What if we trained both young humans and young Vethrak together? What if we taught each species about the other species? Would you be willing to lead this program?" Ji-Wan's eyes got very wide. She had not expected this. You want me to teach both humans and Vethrock? She asked. Yes, the ambassador said. We believe that understanding between our species is very important. We believe that young animals learn best from each other. We believe that someone like you, who has patience and who sees species as interesting rather than dangerous, could help create real friendship between our people. Cravel, Thas, and Mirka made excited sounds. They understood what the ambassador was saying. They thought it was a very good idea. I would be honored, Jiwan said, but I would need help. I would need human teachers and Vethrock teachers to work together. That can be arranged, Korshel said. We have many resources. What you need is already available. Jiwan thought about the toaster incident. She thought about how something bad had almost happened between the species. But instead of letting it push them apart, it had brought them together. It had shown both species that understanding was possible. When can we start? Jiwan asked. As soon as you are ready, Korshel said. But first I believe we should do something. We should take a picture of you and my 3 cubs, a picture of human and Vethrock learning together. This picture will tell the story better than any words can tell it. They took a picture that day. It showed Jiwan in the kitchen, laughing, with the 3 young Vethrock cubs around her. The cubs were also laughing, making their happy, chittering sounds. The picture showed that humans and Vethrock could be happy together. It showed that they could learn from each other. It showed that friendship was possible. That picture would be sent to every human and Vethrock station in the galaxy. It would become the symbol of a new way of thinking. It would become proof that 2 very different species could find common ground. And it all started with toast. It all started when a human woman showed 3 curious cubs how to make breakfast. It all started with a mistake and patience and the willingness to teach instead of punish. Jiwan felt that something very important had started. She did not know that this program would change the future of human and Vethrock relations. She only knew that she wanted to help these 3 young beings understand the world better. She only knew that learning together was more important than staying apart. The picture would be called The Toast Ambassadors by Humans and The Heat Box Lesson by the Vethrock. But everyone who saw it understood the same thing. That understanding between species was possible, and that it could start in the most surprising places with the most simple things, like making toast.